Okay.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and on behalf of the Village of Cary and the Board of Zoning, Planning, and Appeals, I'd like to hereby call this meeting to order on this Thursday, July the 11th, 2024. The time is approximately 7 p.m. We have a quorum of members, and at this time, I'd like to ask our Director of Community Development, Mr. Brian Simmons, to please call the roll.
Graziano, Jasper, Trandell,
Here.
Kretschmer,
Here.
O'Laughlin,
Here.
Williams, Cassetter,
Here.
Corey.
Here. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to rise with us for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks very much, everyone. So before we begin, just a kind of a housekeeping issue. When we introduced, there's a young lady here with us tonight that works for the village, Nohara, so welcome.
Thank you.
And she's here to kind of learn what we do here on the ZPA. So if you're wondering who that is, she's literally with the village and works with Mr. Simmons. So I thought what I would try to do, I know at least one of the petitioners tonight has done this process before, but perhaps one of you have not. The way we do this is we'll ask Mr. Simmons to give us an overview of the application, and then upon conclusion, members of the ZPA may have some questions for Mr. Simmons. Once we conclude that portion of the meeting, we'll open up to the public. I know there are at least one person here potentially from the public. They'll be invited to speak, and then we'll close that portion. But anybody that has an application before us tonight, after we conclude with Mr. Simmons, you'll be invited to come forward and add any color or comment to your application that you think is relevant to your application. Once we conclude that portion, we take a roll call amongst ourselves. We'll take a vote, and then we'll deliver that back to our elected officials, and they'll become the final arbiter of our decision-making tonight. So before I proceed with an administrative matter, do any of the petitioners have any questions about our process tonight? No? Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen of the ZPA, you would have in your meeting package the meeting minutes dated April 11, 2024. You'll recall this was for the mixed-use commercial building just off of 14. And unless anybody has any objections, I'll just do a voice vote. So those in favor of approving the meeting minutes April 11, 2024, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. So at this time, we're going to call petitioner 405 Cary Avenue. The parcel number is 2018451001. And this will be for the village case, ZPA. Thank you, Brian. ZPA case 24 ZPA 06001. And the petitioner is Mr. Edward Reese. So over to you, Mr. Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The request this evening before the board is related to a proposed addition that the Reeses are looking to put on to their existing single-family home on 405 Cary Avenue. They're seeking a variance for a rear yard setback for the proposed structure. This slide summarizes the property. It's currently zoned R2 single-family residential. They're seeking a variance to reduce the rear yard setback from code, which is 40 feet, to a 0-foot setback line. Just some history for the property. It was part of the original corporate limits of the village from 1893. It was originally platted as part of the Jandis Fox River Addition subdivision in 1914, and the original home was constructed on the property back in 1932. The subject property actually fronts 3 right-of-ways, with Cary Avenue being one that is actually developed with a roadway. The rear of the property is a right-of-way for dedicated as right-of-way for Jandis Road, and then there also is right-of-way to the east of the property as you go towards the river for adjacent street that terminates at the intersection with Cary Avenue. So that creates a bit of a unique configuration with this property. It's a triangular-shaped lot, which currently is non-conforming in a few areas. Specifically, it does not comply with the front setback requirement. Code requires 30 feet. The home is currently set back 8 feet from the front property line. As the triangular shape of the property also has a no western property line, so there's a lot depth of 0 feet on the west line and about 124 feet on the eastern line, when code requires a minimum of 125 feet. As you can see by the aerial shown here, the existing rear setback of 40 feet for the zoning district. The house obviously is already existing into that setback area. So the home was constructed prior to the establishment of our current zoning regulations, significantly before our current zoning regulations were in place. So it's a legal non-conforming structure existing prior to the codes currently in existence. Petitioners are seeking to replace a deck in the rear of the structure to construct a 3-season room. As proposed, the proposed improvement would comply with all bulk regulations for structure height and lot coverage. The main issue here is that it would be in that rear yard setback area, which the house currently encroaches in. So the petition, as staff provided the report, was for a setback of 0 feet. The petitioner did provide some documentation that approximately would be about 3 feet off the property line. But again, the rear property line in this area is adjacent to a right-of-way that is not being utilized for roadway surface. As you go back to the aerial, in this image, you can see that right-of-way is about 40 feet in width, and then is adjacent to another right-of-way for the railroad tracks, the Northwest Union Pacific Northwest line. So there is no additional structure that would be behind this property, where that right-of-way kind of acts as a de facto rear yard for the subject home. Within the Unified Development Ordinance, there are various standards that are established or need to be justified for support of a variance. In this case, the hardship was caused by the unique circumstances relating to the land and not the general conditions of the district. The property cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the standards set out in the title, and the applicant has not taken any action that has caused the extraordinary condition substantially make it worse than it otherwise might have been. Based on the unique configuration of this lot, staff believes there is hardships in place from a standpoint of the existing nonconformity status as far as the shape of the lot, and then the presence of the right-of-ways that are adjacent to the property as well. The proposed relief that's being sought this evening would not significantly impact or negatively impact any adjacent properties, as it's adjacent to right-of-way and the railroad tracks on the northern edge of the property. So in that regard, staff believes that the proposed variance does comply with the standards within the ordinance. And should the ZPA agree with that determination and determine that the various standards have been met in this case, as recommended that the ZPA recommend this evening approval of a variation to reduce the required rear yard setback for a one-story addition from 40 feet to 0 feet for the property located at 405 Cary Avenue, subject to the one condition in the staff report that it comply with the proposed improvements, substantially conform to the plans and exhibits as submitted as part of the petition. I'll be happy to answer any questions the ZPA may have, and the petitioners are here as well to provide additional testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Folks, questions for Mr. Simmons? Okay, so for the petitioner, if you have any additional comments that you'd like to offer for your application, you're welcome to do so. I neglected to mention that if you do come up to the podium, just state your name and address. For those of you that are unaware, this does get recorded so that people that are not here tonight can see it at a future date and time, including the elected officials. So you don't have to speak, but you're welcome to.
My name is Ed Reese, 405 Cary Avenue. Thank you for hearing us today. And Mr. Simmons pretty much covered everything that we'd like to do. So that's all I really have to say.
Yeah, Mr. Simmons does a great job, so thank you, Mr. Reese.
Thank you.
All right, so unless the members of the ZPA have questions amongst themselves about this application, I'll call the motion. I'm sorry, there is a member of the public here. Thank you, Mr. Simmons, for catching me. If anyone would like to discuss the application publicly, you're welcome to do that at this time. So hearing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting, and thank you again, Mr. Simmons. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees approval of a variation to reduce the required rear yard setback to 0 feet for the property located at 405 Cary Avenue, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report, and that is item number 1 above the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Simmons, would you call the roll?
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Kretschmer,
Yes.
Trendell,
Yes.
Cassiter. Oh, no,
Yes.
Cat, sorry.
No.
Sorry. I apologize. Corey.
Yes. I'm rubbing off on Mr. Simmons. I didn't do it. So, Mr. Reese, you have a formal recommendation to move forward with your project. My suggestion would be to stay in coordination with Mr. Simmons. This would go before the board, the next meeting,
It's August 6th.
August 6th. Typically, something like this gets put on the consent agenda. It doesn't typically get discussed, but it doesn't mean it won't. So I would just say stay in touch with Mr. Simmons. We'll wish you every success with your project. Thank you. Yep, good evening. All right, so at this time now, I'm going to call case number 24 ZPA 04001. This is for Ridgefield Homes. The location's going to be at Industrial Drive in Reuben Lane. And at this time, I'll once again turn it over to Mr. Simmons for an overview.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The request this evening for this case is seeking a development approval for a project on the property actually across the street from the Municipal Center here. It's seeking approval of a comprehensive plan amendment and a zoning map amendment, and also PUD approval for a 38-unit residential project. Currently, the subject property is Zone B3, which is our fringe business district. As mentioned, the petitioner is seeking approval for various elements related to the project. The comprehensive plan amendment would to change the designation for the property, the future land use map from industry and employment to single-family attached. And related to the project, they're seeking to rezone the property from the B3 designation to our R3 multifamily residential district, which would allow for single-family attached housing. With the property being over 2 acres in size, it does require, and also having multiple units, it does require PUD approval, which would necessitate the process this evening. And there's various zoning departures that are related to the project as planned, which the petitioner is seeking approval of as part of that PUD approval. Specifically, they're seeking departures for the building setbacks along Caper Drive and Reuben Lane to reduce those required setbacks from 30 feet to 25 feet. And then the setback along Industrial Drive would be a reduction from 30 feet to 15 feet. Additional departure that's been requested is the separation, the side-to-side separation between structures, where code requires a minimum setback of 15 feet, and they're seeking to reduce that to 10 feet. And then finally, the final departure is a request to increase the overall lot coverage permitted within the R3 zoning district from 50% to 55%. Currently, under the B3 district, the maximum percentage that the site could be developed is up to 75% lot coverage. Brief history in the property. This property was annexed in the Village of Cary back in 1984. In 1997, it was rezoned to the Business Park zoning district. And then in 2003 was part of the William Caper Jr. subdivision, which is a commercial subdivision of property, including this building, Municipal Center here, all the way through the Aldi site across Three Oaks Road. With that subdivision, there were various improvements that were constructed, including Caper Drive, Reuben Lane, and some utility improvements in the area that would serve future commercial and development in the area. In 2007, the subject property was part of a re-subdivision of what was originally Lot 4 in the Caper Junior subdivision. That allowed for the construction of the Goddard School on the western edge of that parcel, and the parcel that's subject for the redevelopment today was the remaining portion of that 2007 project. In 2019, the village then rezoned the property when we did a update to our zoning regulations, creation of the Unified Development Ordinance. The BP district, which the property was originally zoned, was eliminated as part of that update. We rezoned it to the B3 Fringe Business District, which is current designation today. Just an overview, again, for the public, but from a plan development standpoint, the Chapter 7 of the Unified Development Ordinance requires or establishes regulations for plan developments. Specifically, it's a way to encourage more flexibility in design for projects without the rigidness of zoning regulations. So it does allow for more unique design and character, potentially to preserve natural open features, and open space, building structures and design for specific properties. It's required for any project that is non-single family detached on a property that's over 2 acres in size. So this property is about 4.5 acres, so it's required to go through and receive PUD approval for any development. But also for any properties that are zoned B1 or B3R would also have to go through and receive approval as a PUD for proposed modifications to a plan. As a summary of the proposal, the petitioner is seeking to construct a 38-unit single-family attached development. The project would include a mixture of both duplex and triplex buildings, which are each 2 stories in height. The roadway configuration, which is the interior of the site, would remain private and owned and maintained by an association from that standpoint, but most of the units would have access to that interior roadway portion, with the buildings on the northern end of the property having direct access to Caper Drive. As part of the plan, the petitioner is proposing to maintain a large open space in the center of the site that the majority of the units would actually back up to and have access to within the development as well. The comprehensive plan designation for the property currently is industry and employment. That was designed for encouragement of more industrial growth or business parks. The proposal would change the designation from that designation to a single-family attached to be aligned with the proposed project. Within the comprehensive plan, there is various guidance, as indicated in the staff report, for encouraging additional residential growth within the community, specifically looking at more single-family detached housing, potentially in the periphery of the village, but potentially looking for ways interior the core of the village, encouraging more single-family attached product similar to what is here. Also, the plan does provide guidance as far as looking for new housing opportunities that can provide for young professionals, small families, and seniors, and gives guidance as far as locations to be considered that would have a presence to pedestrian access to community amenities, transit goods and services. And this public property has close access to current municipal center, but also the Caper Park, which is just to the south of this facility. With the proposed site, the petitioner is seeking to rezone the property from its current B3 designation to accommodate a single-family attached product. It would rezone to the R3 multifamily residential district with also the PUD designation. The proposed zoning would be consistent with other apartment and townhome projects within the village, and also 2 that are in relatively close proximity of the facility along New Haven Drive of the Cambria and the New Haven townhome projects. So the proposed R3 zoning district would be consistent with those nearby projects. As part of the PUD, again, there are various departures that are requested from the bulk regulations. The first is the building setback along Caper and Reuben. As you can see in the image on the right, the proposed reduction would be to reduce the setback from 30 feet to 25 feet, and that would be to the side and front of the structures along Caper, and then the rear of the structures along Reuben Lane. And there would be a patio constructed at grade level that would extend 10 feet off the back of those structures along Reuben Drive. The building setback along Industrial would be for the side of units that would be facing that roadway. That would be a proposed reduction from 30 feet to 15 feet, and that would have additional right-of-way between that property line and the lane of travel. The other setback separation requirement that's being sought is the side-to-side separation for multifamily structures or single-family attached structures. Within the code, there's regulations for how close buildings can be placed to each other. Specifically, side-to-side separation is 15 feet, where if you have a front to a side or a rear to a rear building elevation, there's different code requirements as far as how wide that would need to be, and typically it's 30 feet separation, but with the side-to-side, it can be reduced to 15 feet. Petitioner is seeking to reduce that a little bit further from 15 feet to 10 feet, primarily to accommodate for the grades that are on the property, where this property has significant fall. As you go from west to east, it drops about 20 feet in elevation, and to accommodate those falls without significant retaining walls and having larger buildings, they're trying to design the site in a way that they have more of the grading between the structures as opposed to more substantial retaining walls on the property. Finally, a last requirement, departure that's being sought for is a lot coverage departure to increase from the maximum of 50% for the R3 district to propose 55%. As mentioned, the property currently under the B3 designation, the maximum lot coverage it can have is 75%. And the property has access to a stormwater basin, which is just to the east of Village Hall here, that serves the Village Hall property, this entire Lot 4 of the Caper subdivision, but all the other properties in the Caper subdivision as well. It's been designed for all those lots to have 75% lot coverage and have access to that storm basin. So this departure would be above what the R3 district would allow, but would still be less than what that basin has been designed to accommodate. This slide just shows the overview of the proposed subdivision and the grading on the property. As you can see, traveling from, as mentioned, from west to east. My cursor doesn't show up on the screen. There's a significant fall with the contour lines going from the Goddard School to Reuben Lane. Again, drops about 20 feet from one edge to the other. And with the roadways currently being constructed, there's less flexibility from a development standpoint to modify the shape of the property to accommodate for development without staggered foundations. The petitioner is also proposing landscaping to help screen the property from adjacent uses. There's significant landscaping proposed along the western property line, which is shared with the Goddard School. That'll blend in with the existing landscaping along that property line on the Goddard School's property. There is landscaping proposed along the park use on Industrial Drive and also along Reuben Lane. And then each individual unit would have additional landscaping provided at the foundation along the front of the building. This slide shows the proposed elevations. Again, it'll be a mixture of both duplexes and triplex buildings, 2 stories in height. Petitioner can give more information as far as the design of the building, but they've tried to accommodate floor plans that can be flexible as far as the type of buyer that they may expect to have in the facilities. And this is an overview of the floor plans as well as provided. Within the Unified Development Ordinance, as the board is aware, there are various standards that need to be met to support map amendments. Specifically on the slide, the amendment would not be detrimental to the orderly development of the village, promotes public interest, not solely the interest of the applicant, is consistent with zoning classifications of property within the general area, and the trend of development in the general area supports the request are a few of the standards. The petitioner did provide some information in their packet for support of the proposed changes for the development, and staff believes that the proposed development does comply with the standards that are presented and recommends support of the proposed map amendment. Additionally, there are various standards for planned developments, specifically looking at the conformity with the village's comprehensive plan, impact on surrounding properties, parking and traffic, and adequate buffering from adjacent uses. Petitioner again provided some information in their packet regarding the proposed development and how they believe it complies with the standards for planned development, and likewise with the modification standards as far as the overall design of the project, the location of buildings, energy efficient design of buildings, have tried to accommodate the nuances of the site as much as possible, and that's why the various relief is being sought for this evening. So should the ZPA determine, in this case, that the various standards have been met, staff is recommending that the ZPA recommend approval of the motions as presented in the slide, which include the approval of an amendment to the comprehensive plan future land use map from industry and employment to single family attached, 2, an approval of a map amendment to rezone the subject property from B3 fringe business to the R3 multifamily residential district. And 3, finally, approval of the Ridgefield Park plan development for the property located on the northwest corner of Industrial Drive and Reuben Lane, subject to the conditions listed in your staff report. I did provide some revised conditions that were different from what was in the staff report on the dais. There are 2 conditions that were added specifically related to signage for the project. Condition 9 is for the 2 monument signs, which are shown in the landscape plan, just to solidify that those are approved as part of the plan and where they can be located with that, within its distance of the property line. And then condition 10 was for, while the site is being developed and the site is being marketed, to allow for temporary signs related to the marketing and sales of those units in compliance with our code. I'd be happy to answer the questions that the ZPA may have regarding the petition, but the petitioner is here as well to provide additional testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Very thorough as usual, so thank you. Questions for Mr. Simmons?
Just, I have one. Brian, maybe you can remind me, B3's side or front setback is what? B3R?
The B3 district actually is a 0-foot setback.
It is 0,
Yep.
so, okay. So by changing this, we're actually adding what could potentially be there.
Correct. By changing it to the R3 district, the setback becomes more established.
Right.
But yeah, the B3 district currently for any property line is a 0-foot setback unless it's adjacent to residential uses, then there's a transition requirement, but in this case it would be 0 feet.
Perfect. Yeah, no, and thank you for reminding me on the 75% coverage too. I was forgetting that one as well as you were going through it, so I appreciate it.
Anyone else for Mr. Simmons?
Good.
Okay. All right, so what we'll do now is, well, I'll ask one question to Mr. Simmons, which I traditionally ask on something like this. Obviously, a number of people were noticed, including the village. Did you receive any phone calls or emails about the application?
Not regarding this petition. No.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Simmons. So we'll turn it over to the petitioner, and again, if you'd be kind enough just to state your name and address for the record, that'll be appreciated, and we'll turn it over to yourselves.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jay Dula, 903 Lakewood Drive in Barrington, owner of Ridgefield Homes. I have Mike Anderson with Hager. I'll let him introduce himself.
Mike Anderson with Hager Engineering, offices at 100 East State Parkway in Schaumburg.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
So, thanks, Mr. Simmons, for doing a great job of covering the overall concept of the plan. As he indicated, a big challenge with the site is that it does have a 20-foot fall from as you walk outside, and you can see the western property line going down at Easter site. There's an overall 20-foot fall, which makes it very challenging from a development standpoint in particular. You know, even with most business uses, commercial uses, they're all looking for a flat piece of ground. When we started site planning this, we went through probably 10, 12 different gyrations in terms of trying to figure out what the best way to make this development work. You know, most townhouse builders, you build a 4-unit building, you know, 2 end units, 2 middle units. And as we laid out that type concept, you know, you would have a building that would be, you know, a flat for 1 or 2 units, and then you'd be dropping down. And you'd see there's some other examples of it in town where, you know, they call it like a bench elevation, and they drop that elevation down 1 or 2 feet. It doesn't look good. The driveways are usually have a big slope in between the units. So we ultimately came up with this plan, which does a lot of different things. Number one, from a grading perspective, it helps out taking care of having smaller units, the duplexes and the triplexes. It gives us the flexibility of being able to adjust the grading in between the units. What it also gave us was the ability to have a development of 38 units where 30 of them are end units. We only have 8 middle units, so which again, when you're building townhomes, everybody always wants to buy the end unit. So you only have one person in between you. You have the light on the side of the windows. Here and it's always a challenge to sell the middle units. So here where we have 30 end units, it makes it a lot less challenging from a marketing perspective, to have more of that end units. We have, with Mike's help, we have designed the grading is such that we have some slab on grade base units. We have some that are regular basement units, and we even have some that are walkout basements. So we have a variety of different type of basement configurations throughout the site. Also, what we felt strongly about, is that the buildings 1 through 6 that face Caper Drive, that'll be seen from Three Oaks Road. So as you're driving down Three Oaks Road, you'll see the front elevations of those buildings. You won't see the backs, as a lot of times you would see in a development. And then here, those buildings 1 through 6, they back up and are part of the rest of the community. Most people in a home live in the back part of their home. They don't live in the front. And so this works out from a standpoint of the overall site planning and the way that it worked. What I thought was a much better approach. From the standpoint of the unit types, we obviously know that there's we've been building here in town. We built 10 ranch homes over the last 3 years here. We're building the townhomes on 2nd Street and 14 right now. But we know that there's a market for the empty nester that wants to be more of a maintenance-free, one-level living type concept. So the end units of all these buildings are structured where we have that plan, which is the master bedroom down, or now called primary bedroom down, where we can accommodate that buyer. We're hoping that obviously that will capture a big portion of that market, but just in case, we also created, the primary bedroom on the 2nd floor, so we have a separate plan for that, which also then gives us the ability to have a covered porch on that 1st level. Again, as Mr. Simmons pointed out, be a homeowner association. It'll take care of all the common areas. Each individual homeowner will own their own home fee simple, and then the balance of everything, snow removal, landscaping, maintenance, will all be taken care of by the homeowners association. Again, as discussed, landscape-wise, we've created 2 nice entry monuments, which you can see down in the center of that slide. That would be one on each corner of the entrance, coming in off of Caper and coming in off Industrial Drive. And we've obviously, from a standpoint of next to the Goddard School, we've filled in the areas where there is already an existing ornamental fence that provides security for the school, and they have some very large parkway type trees that are already planted. We've taken those and we're filling in with a lot of large evergreens in between those to provide a nice screen between the property. So our homeowners aren't looking at the people using the school and vice versa. And the big thing is we've tried to create is that park site that we have in the middle. It'll be an active park with a trail system that'll go through it. Again, there'll be some grade, so people will still be able to keep in shape. We plan to have like some dog, cleanup stations there, as well as, a couple of fake fire hydrants, so at least there's, an opportunity for people to use that facility, a private park for the subdivision. You know, I don't know if you have any questions for me. Mike could answer any of the questions pertaining to grading, the overall engineering, stormwater management, anything else. So. here to
Thank you,
answer
Mr.
any
Dula.
questions.
I appreciate it. It's a well-done project. So I'll ask members of the ZPA if they have questions for yourself.
Got a quick comments on there. Just looking at this, I like it. I like the layout. I think it fits in there really well, especially as a division between the Goddard School and the industrial area. So that's nice, and it's especially with it being the multi-family building, so that looks good. Especially that park area, that's a nice touch to it too. The only thing, just to make sure when you're looking at it, I don't know how far you've gone on building plans, the 10-foot separation between the buildings. Just make sure that with the code, that you don't need like a fire rating on the walls, some of those exterior walls. I'm not sure, I can't remember offhand how close it has to be, where you have to do like an hour rating, which could affect, your windows and your construction on that. You hate to have to go in there and then just start, moving them around. So maybe before you get too far in there, just confirm that. But
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, we have built in that in the past. I think it's like a 5-foot separation
Okay,
or
so-
7 or something, but I know what you're talking about. We'll make sure from a code perspective, I'm sure the village will.
I'm sure they'll be checking at the time.
We'll pick up on that as we
But
do
I
it.
hate-
And we also try to use, like when we've done other projects where the setbacks are 10 feet, and we try to use like those 2-foot by 2-foot windows that still allow light into the floor plan, but aren't, something that you're looking at from the neighbor next door to you. So.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, so.
that's the other thing with them. You have like one window and another window
Right,
looking
yeah,
at each other.
that's
But
not what you want.
that-
Yeah,
but otherwise, I think it's a nice project. So.
thank you.
Go ahead, Holly.
Just a comment. I'm so excited you're putting a master bedroom on the first floor. And we need these kind of homes so badly here, so I think it looks great. Good for you.
Anyone want?
When we were building some of the ranches, obviously too, it seems like, in today's market, people want to be at a certain price point. They don't want to, they're selling their $500,000 house and they want to buy something at $375,000, $400,000, put $100,000 in the bank when they sell their house or whatever the case would be. And we saw that a lot with when you're building a single family ranch home, that they really want it, but that you can't build in today's market with construction costs and everything else that has gone on. You can't build it. So this is the way to be able to accommodate.
You
that.
did well on those single-family houses.
Yeah, they
The
turned
last
out
one
nice.
that went in looks great,
Yeah.
absolutely. Do you have a price range yet?
So,
for
Mr.
these
Dula,
houses?
forgive me, Holly.
sorry.
I'm thinking that when someone reviews this, so, Mr. Dula, forgive me, you probably want to be at the microphone because when this gets recorded, they're not going to
Oh,
hear what you're
sorry.
saying. No
Sorry.
problem.
Yeah, no problem.
Do you have a price range in mind yet?
We think we're gonna be like in the 375 range, for the slab on grade units. There's new building codes that keep changing. Illinois brought in a new building code effective January 1st, which added additional costs to the construction. We're now required to fire sprinkler the units as well. So all those things, they obviously add to the cost. Builders are pretty much take all your costs, add a margin to it, and that becomes, your sales price. And so the more the costs keep going up, which is unfortunate, it raises the price. But we expect to be in that $375,000 to $400,000 ballpark.
Any basements?
Yeah, so some will be slab on grade, like the units right along the Goddard School. Those will be slab on grade, but then the units that are coming down Caper Drive, those will be basements. We're gonna have walkout basements on those lots that back up to the park. So those will even be even nicer. But obviously, a walkout basement always costs more
Sure,
to do as well. And it'll give us the ability to, some of those lots will give us the ability to do either a slab on grade or a basement, just how the final engineering gets laid out.
Great. Thank you.
So, Mr. Laughlin? No? Oh, I thought you had a question. Julie?
Where do you think that most of the traffic entering and exiting this subdivision will come from? onto Three Oaks Road? Will it go down Georgetown, or will it go off that other, I don't always
Oh, that
take it.
little
That other, yeah,
That'll go down Caper Drive?
yeah,
They'll
yes.
continue down Caper Drive? I think that, I mean, I would say Mr. Simmons probably knows the traffic patterns of the village better than I would, but I would guess that you would probably see some people coming in off of that Caper Drive, and then some coming down Georgetown and possibly then turning into industrial.
It
'Cause-
would be just whatever's the path of least
Yeah,
resistance. So
yeah.
anybody going west on Three Oaks Road towards 31
Would probably
likely
go
would
over.
use Georgetown. And anybody going east would likely use Caper Drive to Three Oaks Road.
Or
Yeah,
industrial.
and there's already
Or
a
Industrial Drive as well.
turn lane on Three Oaks if you're entering that first, if you're heading west, that first entrance to this industrial area, there's a turn lane there, correct?
Correct. Yeah, both Caper Drive and Industrial Drive, there's turn lanes to get into
Okay.
that area.
Or you might even come off of Cary Algonquin Industrial, right?
Right.
And then take just industrial.
Yeah, it
to the
depends on,
Industrial area and.
yeah, if they're coming from Carroll Algonquin side, they more likely would use Industrial Drive to get in. Even coming down Three Oaks Road, that left turn from 14 to Three Oaks is at capacity now, so you could potentially, they would have vehicles turning left there and then accessing the site, or turning left at Carroll Algonquin and then coming up Industrial Drive. Just depends on what's more comfortable for them to access the site.
So, Mr. Dula, I wanted to follow on Mr. Kretschmer's remarks because I think that was rather insightful. My question was going to be for yourself as it relates to us doing a setback from 30 to 15, whether or not the plan has actually been reviewed by the fire department.
Yeah, Brian, I think, can respond to that better than I can, but,
Yes, the fire department did review the proposal. They did provide some comments, preliminary comments related to the project. They had no issues as far as the design of the site. The main concerns that is mentioned at the building permit stage, they would have the final design for the western curb access point, which is just an emergency exit by the Goddard School, to make sure that's constructed to their standards. And then various other permit-related items that they would address at the permit stage, but had no issues with the layout.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And then my last question for myself, Mr. Dula, is that, like I asked Mr. Simmons, I don't know if you received any feedback, because the application requires you to notice, people within 250 feet, so I don't specifically know if anybody from the school, for example, has said, hey, what are you doing over there?
no,
Nothing?
we have not.
Okay.
We did provide all the notices and both the newspaper notice as well as the individual letters that we needed to send out, and we received no response.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
Yep.
So I don't have any additional questions. I want to check with the ZPA members if we have any additional questions. No? Okay, so thank you, Mr. Dula. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson. And this is the time we will open it up for public comment. If anyone wants to offer public comment, remember just when you approach the podium, just say your name and address for the record. And hearing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. So unless you folks have questions amongst yourself with the application, I'll probably call the motion.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So this will be no glasses, this is a long motion. So the chair will entertain a motion to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees, 1, approval of an amendment to the comprehensive planned future land use map from industrial/employment to single-family attached, and 2, approval of a map amendment to rezone the property from B3 Fringe Business to R3 Multifamily Residential District, and 3, approval of the Richfield Park planned development located in the northwest corner of Industrial Drive and Reuben Lane, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. And on your podium, you would have received attachments 1 through 10 now. So there's a couple of new ones that Mr. Simmons alluded to earlier. So that's the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Simmons, would you call the roll?
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Kretschmer,
Yes.
Trandell,
Yes.
Castetter,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes. So, Mr. Dula, you have a favorable recommendation. I know you've already presented to the village board. I know you've done other projects around town, and they're very well done. But the process now is to go with Mr. Simmons to make sure that everything's buttoned up for the next meeting. I'm assuming this will go forward for the same date.
Correct, August 6th.
Yeah, and we'll wish you every success with this project, just like you've done around town. I think the work you've done is stellar. So, well done, and we'll wish you continued success. Thank you, I appreciate it. You bet. Okay, so, Mr. Simmons, we'll just ask a couple of perfunctory questions, whether or not we think we're having meetings coming down the pike for next month.
I have one petition that's pending potentially for August or September. That's still in the works, so we'll see if that does happen, but that would be the only case that's currently pending for future consideration.
Okay.
But nothing definite has been submitted today.
And I know at least two of the members sitting at the dais
here, yeah.
won't be here, I being one of them, unless we can do it from Saint-Tropez.
Might
I'll fly down.
be remote.
All right, so before we close, any other comments, questions? No? Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Covered on the sides.